Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be looking at security and ethics in the computer science syllabus. Further ado, let's begin. So in this video, you'll be looking at how we can keep data safe, and if it's not safe, what are the actions that we can do. We'll also be looking at how we can keep the data, like basically the preventions and also the causes of data or when keeping data safe. We'll also be looking at the uses of passwords, firewalls, proxy servers, SSL, TLS, and encryption. So those are basically all terms of how we can prevent identity theft or when data being stolen. We'll also be looking at some risks by phishing, pharming, hacking, the common ways of how data is stolen, and we'll also be looking at some security safeguards when carrying out online transactions in computer ethics. Before we start this video, the current source where I'm reading all of these notes will be down in the description. It is an IGCSE textbook and can be solely trusted. So let's begin with the introduction. Keeping data safe is very important, and we all know nowadays everything has gone online. So keeping data safe is very important because nowadays retrieving data from somewhere is becoming so easily because people are not that careful. So much data is stolen from your relatives or an individual that's using a computer, and therefore we're learning this chapter to ensure that our data is safe at all costs. Now, data can be corrupted or deleted either through accidental damage or through a malicious act. We'll look at the malicious acts and how we can also prevent these malicious acts as we go on in this video. And there are many ways to keep the data safe, and so in this video we will look at the different ways we can keep this safe, and we'll also look at the causes of these identity thefts. Like example, if someone does this malicious act, what will happen to your computer, or what can they gain, and what's the best solution to do at that appropriate time. So let's begin with security and data integrity. So whether a user is working on an offline computer or a computer connected to the internet, keeping data is very important. So again, keeping look at this, it's saying even offline. So some people think that you can only uh, get data stolen if your computer is connected to the Wi-Fi, but that's wrong because data can also be stolen when it's offline, and we look at the ways how offline, online, and all sorts of stuff like that. Data is threatened by the malicious software, hackers, or accidental damage, and this section covers a number of different security risks and considers ways to overcome or minimize them. Sorry about that. Okay, so we're going to be looking at the different security risks and how we can overcome them with just simple precautions, and it can help so much, can reduce a lot of stress, either if it's your bank account detail or personal information that's stolen. So if you just do these small tasks, you can basically prevent so much headache and stress and all of that. But just doing simple tasks that can save a lot of data from your computer, because nowadays everyone is using computers and hackers are just getting a better way to steal data, and hackers are just becoming better and better, and therefore we ourselves have to also be aware of everything, and therefore we're learning this chapter to ensure we can reduce the security risk and be aware of what we're doing in the computer. So let's begin. We're going to be starting with hacking. So we're going to be looking at the different security threats or aspects when someone steals data from your computer. So we're going to start with hacking, and we all know the word hacking comes in so many movies, series, and everyone talks about hacking. But in a computer science term, hacking is the gaining of illegal access to a computer system. So in a computer science exam, for example, it tells you to mention or tells you to state what is hacking. You simply have to say this is the act of gaining illegal access to a computer system. And the keyword here is illegal access. So when you're writing this in your exam, they will be looking at gaining of illegal access. And then the second mark would be to a computer system, because hacking, right now, we're looking at it in terms of a computer and how data is stolen from a computer system. And therefore, hacking is basically the act of gaining illegal access to a computer system. So hacking, let's look at some of the causes, let's look at some of the preventions that we can do to reduce the impact of hacking. So the first cause of hacking, when someone performs hacking, what happens? So hacking will often lead to identity theft or gaining personal information. Throughout this video, I've been saying identity theft. That simply means that I can get information about you, maybe your address, where you stay, or maybe some family, relative details, all those information that is personal and not meant to be told to anyone else, like bank details and so on and so forth. Those are basically called personal information, and identity theft is basically that, okay, when someone is getting to know you, that is to be personal. So someone should not know about it, but with hacking, they're able to get those informations. The next one is that data can be deleted, changed, or corrupted. Now, in your computer, we have data, and we've done that in the input-output devices, storage devices. Since if you've been doing computer science, ICT, you've been knowing that data is always stored. We have data, we have information. Data is basically stored in the computer. And with hacking, they give or they get an opportunity to steal that data from your computer. They can steal it, they can change it, they can also delete, they can wipe out the entire data of the computer, and they can also corrupt the data. And when you say corrupt the data, that also simply means to change the data, or when corrupting the data, basically adding something to it which can cause it to corrupt. So that's what happens when hacking occurs. So when someone hacks, you have the following impacts to your computer. Now let's look at a way on how we can prevent the hacking. Let's see how we can prevent hacking. Number one is firewalls, and I think you've heard about firewalls. It's a very common term in computer science, but I think we'll look at firewalls later on this video. We'll look at it more in depth on what is firewalls, how firewalls help. But for now, you just need to know that we use firewalls for hacking. Secondly, is that we use strong passwords and user IDs. Using strong passwords can be very important because number one, that can make the hacker or make hacking more harder when you have a strong password, because it's harder to get access to the computer system, and therefore use strong passwords and user IDs to make it much more harder for the hacker to gain access. The next one is using the anti-hacking software. Anti-hacking software basically gives you an alert that maybe someone is trying to get access to your computer, and you can then take action according to what that software tells you to do. So basically, anti-hacking software, so any software in general, will basically alert you, or some of the softwares can also um, do the action, and give you like a notification saying that someone is trying to give you access. We have done so forth, so we've done this. Okay, so that's what we say by software. So we've looked at the preventions, we've looked at the causes, we've looked at what hacking is, and now let's look at the difference between cracking and hacking. Okay, so this can be an exam question too, which can say what is the difference between hacking and cracking. So we said that hacking is breaking into a computer system to steal personal data without the owner's consent. Okay, but the owner doesn't know, or the user doesn't know that they're getting hacked. But for cracking, it's when someone edits a program source code for a purpose, okay, and this can be a purpose as in uh, to see what has happened, or uh, to see if the code is altered, or to see if a software is legitimate, and that's where we use a cracker. So a cracker is aware, so the user is aware of what they're doing, because a cracker will see if their software is indeed corrupted, changed, or deleted. But for hacking, the user does not know. So that's the difference between hacking and cracking. Let's move on to the next one. We say viruses. What is a virus now? This is not the ongoing viruses like the COVID, but the viruses in a computer system is simply a code that replicates into the computer system with an intention of deleting, corrupting, or can cause the computer to malfunction. So viruses indeed are just like the real life, where they spread. So does it in a computer system. Basically, it replicates itself with an intention of deleting or corrupting files, just like the real life viruses. Let's have a look at the causes and the preventions. When looking at the causes, we have can cause the computer to crash, stop functioning normally, or become unresponsive. Now, usually, how a computer can be slow is one of the side effects of viruses. Okay, when your computer system is slowing down or is very slow as day progresses, that means that there's a virus in. It's not a must that it's a virus, but you should look into it. But sometimes, if your computer is slow, it can be because of memory, maybe it's full. But one of the effects is that if your computer system is getting slower, it is because of viruses. The next one is it can delete files and data. As we said in the definition, it replicates itself in an intention to delete or change data or corrupting the files. So these are just some these are some causes that are done by the virus. Let's have a look at the preventions now. With the preventions, we have user antivirus software, and just like the other, like hacking with the anti-hacking software, it's the same thing. It's the same way the antivirus software works. Basically, it gives you a notification that there's a virus, do the necessary actions to prevent it. The next one is don't use softwares from unknown sources. Now, usually nowadays, so many people are getting a lot of information from the internet because it's free. For example, movies, which is the best example you can give now. Many people nowadays search for movies online and they go to websites, and those websites actually install viruses into your computer, which replicates itself to delete data, and you will not notice this until it's very hard to notice a virus unless you have antivirus softwares, or you can notice your computer being slow, and therefore try to avoid visiting websites like that, and usually only visit secure websites. And later on we'll see on how to determine if a website is secure. We look at ways to know that this website is secure and it is good to enter it. Now, usually, if you use antivirus software basically also um, gives you a notification that this website is harmful and therefore don't use it. Okay, so that can also be a plus point of using an antivirus software. And finally, the next prevention is be careful when opening emails. So many people have spam emails, but nowadays Google emails are becoming more smarter. They are categorizing each email like spam and all. But be careful when opening emails attachments from unknown senders. So if you're not aware about them, avoid opening them. Okay, let's move on to the next security threat, which is phishing. So we have phishing and farming. Okay, so let's look at phishing and let's look at farming. So with looking at phishing, this is when the creator sends a legitimate looking email, and as soon as the user clicks on the link, it is redirected to a fake bogus website, and this fake bogus website is therefore then stealing data or helps to gain a bank account details or so forth, basically personal data. So let's look at the causes. The first one is that once when the user clicks on the email or the email when it's redirected to the website, this can allow the user, whoever is behind this hacking or behind the phishing, will basically be able to gain the personal data such as the bank account details, family members, numbers of users of the computer, and so on, so forth. Okay, the next cause is that this can lead to fraud or identity theft. Again, most of these uh, security threats are leading to identity theft, if you've noticed. So why would someone want identity theft? Why would someone want to know where you live? Now, this could be a threat, okay? Okay, you can email or you can message them saying that I have your address, send me this amount of money, or else I will sort of do this. Okay, and therefore the user gets scared and gives them money. This is what we call identity theft. So let's look at the preventions. The preventions is use an ISPS filter out the phishing emails. As I told you now, uh, internet is also becoming smarter, and therefore we are categorizing different emails, and this can basically reduce the fraud emails, can reduce these phishing emails aside, so you don't even open it. So we use the ISPS filters to filter out all of these phishing emails. The next prevention is that the user should always be cautious when opening emails or attachments, just like the previous one with viruses. It's the same thing. Always be cautious. And most of these hacking theft or most of these hacking uh, or what we say security threats, you always have to be cautious. You have to always be aware of what you're doing in the computer system, and therefore most of these people target the old people because they're not as uh, informated, I would say, or that they're not with information. They don't have enough information on how to use the computer, and therefore sometimes they get lost, and therefore it's a very easy target to get, whatever they want. uh, Either it can be personal data or money, bank account details, anything. Okay, so therefore they target the appropriate age or appropriate population for an easy task. But therefore, I think everyone needs to be aware of what they're doing. And let's move on actually, and let's move on to pharming. So phishing and pharming. Pharming is a malicious code that is installed on a user's hard drive or on the web server, and this code will redirect to a fake bogus website without their knowledge. So you can see phishing and pharming both redirect to a fake bogus website, but the difference is that pharming is a malicious code, while phishing is basically when they send a legitimate looking email, which then redirects to a fake bogus website. So let's look at the causes of the pharming, and the causes are: the creator of the malicious code can gain personal data just like the others, and this can lead to identity theft just like the others again. The next one is that some of the anti-spyware software can be identified. So again, we use the anti-spyware. Again, for the preventions for this, you use ISPS. There's no software to reduce this. This one, you just be aware. With this one, we have antivirus, we have anti-hacking. So we have quite some softwares nowadays to help us. So this one we can use the anti-spyware. Okay, and the user should always be alert and look for clues that they're being redirected to another website. Let's move on to war driving. So war driving is simply the gaining, or is basically when you locate and use wireless internet connections illegally without someone knowing. So if I use your internet connection without you knowing, that's basically called war driving. The causes would be that you can steal a user's internet time, and this basically means that if I steal your user's internet time, if I steal your internet time, that will just reduce the internet speed. And if you've noticed that if many of your family members use the Wi-Fi will reduce. Now, me using your Wi-Fi will be another member, and therefore slowing down the speed of the Wi-Fi, which can basically steal the user's internet time. The next one is that it is possible to hack into the wireless network and steal the user's passwords and many other personal details. So that's called war driving, and that's the causes of war driving. How we can prevent it is that we use a wide equivalent privacy, the WEP encryption. Okay, we look at encryption again later on in the videos that will come up, and we also use firewalls that helps us to prevent the outsiders to gain access. Finally, let's move on to spyware, and then cookies, and then in the next video we will be looking at the loss of data and data corruption. Okay, so we will split this into two parts. So the part one will only be looking at the different identity thefts, or the different security threats. So let's look at spyware. Previously, when we talked about pharming, we looked at anti-spyware. So it should be something related to that, but it is not. So you think that the software means anti-spyware. It does not mean like that. Okay, so what we say by spyware is basically when we gather information by monitoring key presses on the user's keyboard, and then the information is sent back to the person who sent the software. So this is basically we monitor what, or when someone monitors what you're typing to gain information. And why would someone want to know what you're typing? Now, for example, if you visit a bank website, okay, and you input your password with your keyboard, this will basically send it to the user who sent the spyware, and can therefore get to know your bank account details, and then can get money out of that. So let's look at the causes of this. Again, spyware is basically gathering information by monitoring key presses on the user's keyboard, and then the information is sent back to the original originator, we can say. Okay, so when looking at the causes, gives the originator access to all data entered using a keyboard on the user's computer. Of course, that's in the definition 2, and the software is able to install other spywares, read cookie data, and also change the user's default web browser. So this is basically getting information from the computer. How we can prevent this is number one, use an anti-spyware software. Again, gives you an alert that someone is trying to basically monitor your key presses. The next one is that the user should always be alert, look for clues. And thirdly is that when you're inputting any password in a website, use your mouse. Try use your mouse because they cannot monitor the mouse. Finally, let's move on to cookies. A cookie is not a security threat, but basically stores the data when you use a web browser. Okay, so let's look at this definition. A cookie is a packet of information that is sent by a web server to the web browser. Okay, sent by the web server to the web browser, and cookies are generated each time the user visits the website. And normally nowadays, if you go to a website, it will say that this website uses cookies, accept and deny and stuff like that. Okay, so usually most people just click on accept and without even knowing what they're doing. So cookies are basically a packet of information that is collecting whenever you're using a website. So again, it's saying a message is frequently displayed, saying that cookies are required to access the website, and basically you accept. And every time a user visits the website, the cookies will have collected the key information and store it in the web browser. So what this means that when I go and log into one of the websites, automatically maybe they log me in, and this is done because of the cookies. They have collected the key information about the user, so whenever we go to the same website, it will store the data. So here's a good definition. Cookies aren't programs but are simply pieces of data. It is not a security threat. So whenever they ask you, is cookies a security threat, in an exam question, they are not a security threat but simply programs that store data, and they can't actually perform any operations but just allows detection of web pages viewed by the user, and basically just stores and gathers information from the user when using the website, and does not contain any personal information. It's not stealing any personal information. So there you go. We looked at cookies, we looked at spyware, we looked at war driving, pharming, phishing, viruses, hacking, and we looked at some of the introduction to how some data can be stolen. In the next video, we'll look at further into what is firewalls, what is the different ways or how the computer performs to prevent these security threats. So I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching this video throughout, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye, and thank you for watching.